Welcome to another episode of The Art of Volunteering. Today, we're going to be speaking with my friend, Tracy Huxley. Now, Tracy was introduced to me by a mutual friend, Jane Morrison, who has been involved with the Optimist for several years. Let me give you a little bit about Tracy. She's been a proud Optimist since 1996, with membership in both the Southwestern Ontario and the Caribbean districts, serving multiple roles in the club, district, and international levels. One thing that fills her bucket is the chance to work with optimists from around the globe. Tracy's style has been described as interactive, enthusiastic, and motivational. Her leadership approach is very based in the strength of relationships. And I've had an opportunity to talk to Tracy before this, and just today, she's very engaging. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Now, Tracy, again, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you. This is exciting. I listen to so many podcasts in my life, in my general day, because my eyes are busy on my actual work, that I'm actually going to be on a podcast now.
That's awesome. All right. Some of our friends listening today might not be familiar with Optimist International. Can you share a little bit about who and what Optimist International is? Like, what's their mission? Who do they serve? Just a little history.
All right, let's hope that I get this correct.
Okay.
I'll have people that'll listen and definitely correct any of these dates. But the Optimist organization started in 1911 with a bunch of men in New York, in Lafayette, and they wanted to create a bonding opportunity for professionals, men, with the original motto of Optimist before we became international as the friend of the delinquent boy. In 1919, we opened we became Optimist. They became an actual organization where they now had those five clubs, and they soon changed just friend of the boy as our motto, as our mission. We have been now an organization since then. We are going to be celebrating in 2024 100 years as Optimist International, and that was when we built our very first club outside of the United States, which was built in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Which is really cool because I will be the fourth female president serving that year. I am from London, Ontario, so I will be the Centennial Canadian president, and when we celebrate our Canadian centennial. We have gone through different mottos of the delinquent boy, the boy, friend of youth, to now, the friend of youth. We also, our mission statement is by providing hope and positive vision, which are synonymous with the word optimist. By promoting hope and positive vision, optimists bring out the best in youth, their communities, and themselves. It's a 3-tier approach of bringing happiness, positive vision, optimism into everyone's lives. And each club within Optimist International, we're in over 35 countries, gets to approach their community with the needs of their community. There is no one project every club must do. There is not one target that every club must do. They must bring out the best in their community, their children, and themselves. That's what their mission is.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What's your favorite part of that mission statement?
The one that hits me the most is that it's brought out the best in me. Okay. Without a doubt. There are parts of me that I thought, gosh, if I had known this about myself many years ago, I'm not going to date myself. I don't care if people can see my face or not on a podcast. Many years ago, I probably would have taken a different career choice, although I am taking what I've learned as an optimist and added another career into my fold because of it, or because part of it. It is really nice. This might lead into one of your future questions, Stormy. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries.
I'll do that a lot. Just a heads. But it is really nice. So my Optimist Club that I belong to in Asaba Port Franks, my first Optimist Club that I've been a member of since 1996. I think it's 1996, was built in 1983 when I was a young child. My dad was the one of the charter members. He was the second president of the club. I was the 25th president of the club. Um, I now am a member of that club which I took as a child. They donated the first computer into my elementary school. Now I am dating myself. Um, they sponsored my t-ball team. They were the coaches for my baseball team. I went to their art programs. I competed in the lip sync contest. They donated the money to my Girl Guides and my brownies and things like that. I'm now on the flip side of that, and I get to give back to my community, and I get to now serve with my club to give back to the community as I was a child who was taking when I was younger. And that's a really beautiful thing. And I think we all look for opportunities to make ourselves feel good. I had an English teacher that said, I challenge you to come up with something that truly is altruistic after teaching us the true definition of it. He said, because no matter what you give me as an altruistic act, you're probably getting something in return. And even if that is the warm and the fuzzies. And sadly, when we volunteer a lot of times, or when we sign up to give of ourselves, we feel it greedy to feel that we're getting something in return. We want to be giving. We're doing it because we want to give. But there should be no shame in taking pride in feeling good about giving.
Right.
That's what makes us more human. That's what makes us happy. So that's the beauty about giving back after taking.
I love it. And you did answer a couple of questions. Just
you can still ask them. I can give you.
I was going to ask you like why you volunteer, and you just shared that, and you also answered my question about what you personally receive from it, because everyone, as much as they give to help someone else, they ultimately do receive something. Volunteering is. It's that feeling that you receive. It helps your mental well-being. Like there's just so many different, it helps you feel connected. It gives you purpose in your life. And that's what people do receive from volunteering. And they come away with a smile on their face, knowing that they're making an impact in someone else's life. And that's just so important. And I'd love to hear that. Now, the Optimist, you're 100% volunteer, or do you have paid employees?
We have a head office. It's in St. Louis, Missouri, with paid staff that helps support our clubs. Optimist clubs themselves, by being an Optimist club, you have liability insurance that is available or automatically, issued to you. We have lots of supports. We do have programs. We have an world oratorical program, speeches, where the ultimate world oratorical champion gets a $25,000 scholarship. We have the world junior golf competition, which the likes of Mike Weir and Tiger Woods have been through our junior golf competition, which takes place every year, multiple different venues, and then the epitome of the whole thing in Florida. We have essay contests with scholarships that come from our foundations. We have, instead of an oratorical contest, we have a contest for the deaf and hard of hearing, communication contests for the deaf and hard of hearing. So not the opposite, but the adapted version of an oratorical contest that can be done with sign language or with adaptive hearing. So these are all just a few of the many different programs that are available to clubs to host. Like I said, they're not required to do any of them, but they're that staff base that we have the staff base, and then we have an international volunteer base. I'm currently in the process as president-elect, so our term begins October 1st, of creating my committees from things like the programs that I was just describing to marketing and all these other things. So they are then volunteer-based committees with a staff liaison that helps pull things together in a more professional way.
Okay, that sounds cool. How many volunteers internationally do you have?
We're at about 60,000 right now. We are in, like I said before, just over 30. I can't remember how many countries. I should have looked it up. Shame on me. Over 30 countries. I think it's somewhere around 35 countries in the world. We've just created a new district that over 40 clubs we've built so far in the last few years. Meet Baloo Magoo, my Australian Shepherd pony. In Nepal, Nepal has over 40 clubs right now, and they're going so strong. Our mission statement about by providing hope and positive vision to bring out the best suits very well to the Nepalian way of life, namaste, and bringing peace and living in a harmonious way. And so they have really wrapped their arms around becoming optimists and spreading optimism throughout their communities. It's a very beautiful marriage that's happened when we tapped into that country. It's a wonderful thing. Um, Being an optimist, whether it's like an optimist with a capital O, as I consider myself, and those card carrying optimist members of optimist clubs, or being an optimistic person, carries its own advantages. Optimists, people who are optimistic, are scientifically known to live longer, healthier, happier lives. We actually live, I think it's 2 point something extra years over the average person when you live an optimistic lifestyle. I almost shy away from using that term of glass half empty, glass half full, because to be optimistic is to have a positive outlook on the future, to see the hope and the positive vision in situations when you might more naturally go into the dismal side of things. You know, so you look for a silver lining, you look for an opportunity and an opening to make change or to change the course of a negative situation. And that's the way that I see it. I took an EQ test last year, emotional intelligence, and it was a very not surprising at all. It should have been surprising to me that my weakness is that I'm overly optimistic. That when presented with a video at one point of a kid that was actually being mean to another child, I didn't see it that way. I thought he was trying to be helpful, where everybody else in this demo group saw the mean child. I was like, oh, no, I thought he was okay. Yeah, I guess he was being mean, but overly optimistic. And I was like, well, then make me the president of the optimists. So here I am.
I'm sorry, that's funny.
There's your blooper. There's a blooper for you. I have another one. Don't worry.
Oh, good, good, good. So you shared that your dad was like a founding member back in, was it 1983?
Of my club, yes.
Of your club. What, I guess, what drew him to the Optimists? Like, because this set the foundation for you coming in. So what drew him to it?
It really did.
You know?
You know, I think we all probably look back to our parents and ask ourselves, you know, which one are we more like? You know, whether you look like them or you act like them. I am almost a carbon copy of my father. Thank God, some of those crazy things like that he has, I go to my mom's side. I always.
Okay.
But my dad has always been an extremely giving person. I remember before the Optimist Club was created in our community, when we had first moved into the house that they still live in. So I was very young. He went around the neighborhood collecting funds so that on Canada Day, they could have in the middle of our subdivision fireworks go off. You know, like he was already out there doing these little things to make where he lives a more enjoyable place to be. Whether it was just for the kids or whether it was for everyone, it really was no line there. I mean, fireworks are for everyone, right? So when the community was starting to build this Optimist Club, that was a natural fit for him. And when people heard a little bit about Ron Huxley, they were like, oh, well, we got to go ask this guy. So now I will absolutely date myself. I was 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old when the club was built. So I knew nothing else. It was much like my love for public speaking and my ability to stand up and my desire to take the butterflies that you feel and make them excitement versus nerves. Mm-hmm. I learned that from watching my dad. Little did I know, my dad was extremely nervous, but he never gave that vibe off. So I just thought, yep, this is what you do. This is the shoes I fill. You go up, you stand in front of a podium, you make people laugh, and you give them wonderful, heartfelt words. And I only learned later in life that when he started doing that, he was terrified. But he didn't share the terrified feelings with me, and so I didn't take them on. I strongly associate that with, if I hate broccoli, I won't tell my kids I hate broccoli so that they'll love broccoli. You know, it's the same kind of thing. So my dad's been that man his whole life. He's a retired volunteer fire chief, just retired a couple of years ago when they built a brand new fire station in their rural community. He was the first to sign up and say, make me a firefighter. They all leaned to him and said, you know, with your leadership skills, we want you to be the chief. He has been, I will be the very first, second generation, 2013, 2014. So that is very special. Fourth woman, first, second generation. And so, yeah, you can see I was slowly just been filling in his shoes. You were going to ask later what I do for a living. That'll come up again, filling in my dad's shoes. So I have a tight family network, and that I believe has to do with the fact that since a young age, optimism has been part of our lives.
Okay. So twofold, building off of your jumping ahead of my questions. Okay, you're the incoming president, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that look like for the time commitment? Uh, what activities do you do? What does that look like? And then the second question is, after I hear this, I want to hear what your day job is. Like, I want to see what this balance looks like.
We'll do it in your order and then it'll make sense.
Okay.
And so what is the time commitment? This year as president-elect, I do a lot of time of planning my approach, getting the synergy between the current president and what they're trying to accomplish, because we really are at a pivotal time in the volunteer world. I'm sure you're hearing this in many of your different interviews, but volunteering looks very different today than it did in 1911, 1919, in how people give of their time. It was not until 1987 that this organization welcomed women into its membership. And now we're looking at millennials and Gen Z, and they all have this huge desire to give back, but their style of giving back is much different than a meeting every Tuesday at noon for lunch. You know, so I've already forgotten your question. This is terrible.
What do you do as a like what volunteering do you do
How
within
much
the
time does it
organization?
take for me? So I am, this is my last weekend home until the end of March. So I am gone for 9 weeks because this is being recorded in January. But I'm gone for the next 9 weeks to different cities to train we have 42 different districts in the organization that then filter down and serve the communities. So I am going to be in 7 different cities, 8 different cities, training those governors of those districts. Big time commitment there. I'm going to be flying out at the bare minimum on Thursdays, coming home on Sunday, petting my dog, saying hello to my partner, and then flying back out again. That's not how the past presidents elect have been doing it. They've been doing one giant session together in our head office city, St. Louis. As you said in my intro, am really relationship based in my leadership style, and I want to really get to know these individuals as individuals and not in a giant room from a stage. Then I will be at board meetings. I'm on the board of directors for Optimist International as president-elect. I will be chairman of the board the 3rd year. And then I have a flex year where I get to relax and just kind of like decompress. And then I will serve on what's our candidates qualification committee for a 4-year term. And that's the committee that looks to find nominees for vice presidents, 7 of them, president-elect, and the 2 board members that come on and off every year from a 3-year term. In addition to traveling to some of these districts, these clubs. It is my hope in the year that I'm president that we will be able to, instead of sending me to district conferences to sit at a head table, I want to hear about the amazing events our clubs are doing, and I want to go to the events, flip the burgers, hand out the cotton candy, put air in bicycle tires. I want to continue to be a grassroots optimist with fellow optimists, shoulder to shoulder. So there'll be more traveling. What do I do for a living, and how am I ever going to fit that in?
Yes, please. My listeners want to know.
I'm not retired. I not only work full-time, I actually have a full-time job and a part-time job, which really makes things convoluted. But as a full-time job, I am a goldsmith. I am a jeweler.
Okay.
I am with the family business to take over from my father. As I've already alluded, I just keep following in his footsteps. My sister, by the way, is a fire captain. She's in the fire industry, and I am in the jewelry industry. So when my father was president in 13 and 14, I held the business, the fort down at work. And now he will hold the fort down while I hit the road with more knowledge than anybody's employer could possibly know of really what it's going to demand of me time wise, which is wonderful.
Right.
And the moment that I have that flux year, he gets to retire.
Oh. Well, that's amazing. Because I was like, just reading through your information, I'm like, she's got to be in sales. Like a salesperson could adjust their schedule to do all this.
I'm in
So
family. I'm in the
you're
business
in.
of family and dog training. Dog training is my other. I am a certified dog trainer. And so I teach
Really?
puppy classes and obedience and behavior modification and do home visits. So I get to control that schedule myself.
Okay. All right. So we actually have dog training this afternoon. We have a 9-month-old golden doodle, and
Oh,
she's awesome. She's the best thing that happened to our family. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So she wasn't a COVID puppy. I had sworn off all pets. Our previous one ran me for my money, and I was just like, never again. And I had a weak moment, and my husband's like, let's go now. And we came home with the puppy.
I'm waiting for Nigel's weak moment so that Baloo can have a friend. Well, I'm happy friends. I'm literally, my term will end on September 30th, 2024, and I plan to get a puppy that fall.
Okay.
I've been planning that for 2 years.
Nothing like planning ahead. Well, you have to. I mean, with your schedule, you have to know where you're at.
I need to be home. Yeah.
My husband is in sales and like he does trade shows. So like I'm actually work year over year because I know that these trade shows are going to happen the same time
Right.
every year. So like people ask, well, what are you doing? Well, when a year from now, like I can pretty much tell you. Yeah. So I totally get that. Okay. We've covered a lot so far. I guess in your years of being an optimist, whether receiving or giving, can you share a story or stories of impact? Something that you've seen the work that you're doing actually being received and how it's received.
I can. I can. And I share this story. I select when I'm going to share it. It's probably going to be one that I share a lot over the next 2 years, meaning way more people are going to hear it. But as I said, I've been an Optimist member since 1996. So it's been quite a long time. And for a long time, I did not do anything with my membership. I didn't attend club meetings. I barely attended club events. I was in my 20s and I was one of the managers of Canada's largest drag racing facility. So I was working 100-hour weeks at the time. And then I got asked to um to participate in an event, and specifically, and not by my parents, and it reeled me in. And over that time, anytime someone would ask me why I'm an optimist, it started off as every Father's Day I would give my dad a card, as most of us do, and I would alternate, this year's funny, odd is funny, even is sentimental, and the card would go back and forth. And one year it was a sentimental card. Sentimental must have been 1996. And my dad was very touched by it and told me that he wanted to, sign me up as a member of our club. And that was my story. That was why I was an
Okay.
Optimist member until 2013, I think it was. So back it up to 2006. I live in the city of London, Ontario. The Children's Hospital of Southwestern Ontario is in this city, and they were building a extension onto the hospital, and the pediatric oncology department was going to have this own wing. And they approached the Optimists and said, can you make a donation? And the two districts, Midwestern Ontario and Southwestern Ontario, came together and said, we will commit to making a $1 million contribution over the course of 4 years. They did it in 3 years, raised over $1 million in under the 3 years. That was the first $1 million contribution to the hospital here. And so there's, Optimist stuff throughout the oncology department. Um, and that was a huge, huge deal. They had a parade. They closed Wellington Street, and all these optimists wore their shirts, and that was all wonderful. And when that was finished, my dad went back to them and said, "Now what can we do for you? We've done that. Now what can we do as optimists to help bring out the best in the children in the hospital?" And the Children's Health Foundation of Southwestern Ontario said, "Well, we do a bravery bead program." And I think this was actually developed out in Vancouver, where a child comes in and gets diagnosed with, at the time, with some form of cancer. Maybe it's leukemia. And so the child then has the option, or the family has the option, to enroll the child into the bravery bead program. And so they start building these necklaces because youth pediatric leukemia will take maybe about 4 years of treatment. So every time the child would come into the hospital and they had a poke, so whether it was a blood transfusion or radiation treatment or bone marrow transplant or whatever, each one of these types of treatments would have a specific bead. Blood transfusion, red bead; bone marrow transplant, a bone colored bead; radiation, a glow in the dark bead. And they would create these necklaces. And after about 4 years of treatment, they'd have more necklace and beads than they'd have neck on these little tots, right? Little babes. And every year on the anniversary, they would have an anniversary bead, and their first beads would be their name on this necklace.
All right.
And so when we approached them and said, "What can we do now that we've raised the $1 million?" They said, "Well, we'd like to expand this program beyond just children through cancer treatment, but other illnesses. And if we really could, we would really like to expand it to the siblings of those children. Because when kids are going through cancer treatment, it is not just the child that's going through the treatment process. It's the whole family. And if they have siblings, those siblings are clearly and justifiably going to feel like they're constantly taking a backseat. So by bringing them into the fold, and they also get beads, during visits to the hospital. And for many of these children, to receive that bead is the end to that treatment, and it's the thing they look forward to. It brings that hope and positive vision. It brings that happiness to the other side of a negative situation. So if we could raise the money on an annual basis to take over the funding of this program, they would be able to hire a part-time staff member and bring this into more than just the children with the cancer illness, to more illnesses and more children. So we did. And all of our clubs in Southwestern Ontario, most of our clubs make annual fundraisers to donate money to continue to fund this since about 2010, I think it was. So I live in the city. This is my impact story now. That was the buildup. I told you I have stories.
Okay. That's okay. I love it.
So I live in the city of London, and at the time I lived very close to the Children's Hospital. So the grocery store that I would be most likely to travel to was across the street from the Children's Hospital. And it was February 3rd, and I think it was 2009, maybe. Or I think we started this program in 10. Yeah, it was in that. We'd been doing it for a couple of years. And I'm waiting in line to pay. And in front of me is a mother and her son. And her son is probably close to about 10 years old, but very slight in size. So slight that he was sitting in a car seat, and the car seat was in the grocery cart. And,
wow.
And he was wearing a black toque, a black wool beanie. And on the front of it was the stitching, the words, I'll alter this. It's a cancer sucks, or cancer stinks.
Okay.
Cancer stinks. And in one of his eyes, it was his left eye socket, was a tumor, for lack of knowing his diagnosis, about the size of my fist. And you could tell he'd had a terrible, no good, very bad day. And in that moment, I wanted to be who I know I am, the Tracy that might say something to trigger a smile or a little bit of laughter, but I couldn't, because the empath in me started to have tears run down my cheek. And I'm like, I can't go talk to this child crying. That's not going to help his terrible bad day. And then I was comfortable in the resolve that although in that moment I could not put a smile on that child's face, in my involvement in my Optimist Club and the fundraisers for the Bravery Bead program, I have put many smiles on his face inadvertently by being involved in something bigger than myself. By sometimes I'm pumping up the tire of a child's tricycle, and sometimes I'm selling raffle tickets that are being donated. The funds are being donated to the Bravery Bead program, and my reach goes further than my eyes will ever see. And so if you ask for my impact statement, the reason that I am an optimist ultimately boils down to that evening in that grocery store where I realized I might not be able to touch the heart of that child in this moment, but I have touched him in my past and my future.
Yeah, amazing. You're you're touching my heart right now. Yeah, that's incredible, and that you were able to recognize that and see beyond the moment, like what that greater impact was and continue to be after that time. Okay, all right. Enough of the sad, or not sad, but weighty.
Yeah.
Fun. What is your blooper? Tell
Oh,
me something that didn't go right, but you learned something from it.
so it's not as necessary, maybe didn't go right. So in 2019, 2020, our international president was Adrian Elcock. He is from Barbados, a very good friend of mine and an extremely intelligent gentleman. Funny how I was going to say that. And the next point I was going to say I should put something in between there. He's an extremely intelligent gentleman who decided to make me his chief of staff. That we're supposed to go back to back, but they did. And so what he wanted to do, he, like myself, when he was first elected, he was under the age of 50 and, running family businesses, and knew that his time available for this kind of a commitment was going to require a partner, someone that he could dish other things off to, either that he was not his strength, or didn't have the time for. Let's divide this job up a little bit. And so that's who I was to him. And so throughout the 2 years, his year as president-elect and his year as president, I was side by side with him. And as he was wrapping up his year as president, and let's remember, I said 2019, 2020, and our Optimist years end in September. So he was our president of Optimist International when we went into the pandemic, and really had to change the way that we did approach things. So when we were wrapping up his year, he once said to me, Tracy, and this was the life lesson that I learned from him, one of the many, but one that definitely sits with me. Sometimes you just need to let things break. Interesting. And what he had observed was, as soon as, and I do not like to micromanage, but the moment a ball looks like it's gonna hit the floor, I pick it up and I finish it. And I was doing a lot of that. And he's like, you have to start choosing when it's okay to let something break. Because I wasn't gonna let anything fail for him. And I thought, you're right. I wear myself out because I don't want anybody to be disappointed. I don't want something to go wrong. And so I will not sleep to make sure something is done. So I've had to learn that. That was a big life lesson for me, to figure out when I can just let something break.
And that must be difficult for you, because you have a high emotional intelligence. So
Thank you.
You don't just read yourself, you read and understand everyone you're involved with. And you know what the impact is going to be. So I got to think that was a challenge for you, even though the light bulb went off, what that really looked like in everyday practice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing to learn the practice of choose your battles. And I got pretty good at that. That's why I have a strong relationship with my partner, when you choose your battles. It's the same kind of skill. It's like, when is it okay to let something fail? And, what is the greater impact of that not going right? And do you have the time and the capacity right now to make it succeed? And if not, is it okay to let it fail? Can we learn from our failures too? I mean, that means you have to then be in that mindset where you're gonna like, okay, so what can I learn from this for the future?
Yeah. Well, I like that. I've this is a standard question that I ask, so I find it very interesting what the comments are, and I so appreciate this. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I'm sure it's not as goofy as I could have came
Yeah.
up with. Keep
No,
me on
that's
long enough,
okay.
something goofy
But
will
it's
come.
but I think my listeners will embrace that because they would encounter that in their everyday life and may not have articulated it that way. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We've had this awesome conversation. We're coming to a close, but I have one more. I guess it's not really a question, it's more of an opportunity. I would like you to love Optimist International. Why should people check you out? Why should they get involved? Just love on your organization.
All right. So if somebody fast forwarded through this entire session and is only listening right now and did not hear everything else and was not in time, Optimist International, being a member of your Optimist Club, everybody has an opportunity to volunteer in their home, in their home area, in their community, in their neighborhood. What is different between volunteering with an Optimist Club versus volunteering with anything else is that we offer that capital O, that ability to be optimistic, to have a positive vision and outlook for the future, to bring positive vision and hope to people within your community, whether it is as simple as having a breakfast with Santa at Christmas time or an Easter egg hunt at Easter time or respect for law where you bring out your fire department and your ambulance and your police and the kids get to touch a truck. What we do by surrounding ourselves with other people who have a positive vision for the future is that we increase our appreciation for life. We increase our appreciation for friendships and fellowship and with a full-hearted opportunity to try and bring out the best in our community. If you don't like where you live, if you don't feel your community is giving you what you need, you have an opportunity to change that. You have the chance to either build or join an Optimist Club and make those changes that make your home a little better place for people to want to live and to communicate and to step out of their doors and to be with their neighbors. I have lived this almost my entire life, and I have not only continued to love the community that I came from and travel that hour back all the time, but I am also a member of the Optimist Club of St. Anne's Bay in Jamaica, which is where my partner is from. And so I have the opportunity when we return to his little hometown to volunteer with fellow optimists who share that same pride, that same hope and positive vision, that same optimism with a capital O in a completely different country. Every optimist out there that is doing good things for their community makes me look like a better person because we all do this with the same goal in mind, and that is simply to give back and to make our communities a better place to live. And these people, I will always walk into a room and feel like I am at home, regardless of what country or what state or what club I'm with. We all have that same little heart inside of us that wants to do better for everybody.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going
Welcome,
to
Stormy.
encourage my friends to check you out. Um, yeah, like I said, I had always heard about Optimist International, but really didn't know much about it. I mean, I heard great things. Just at the same, you hear good things, but you really don't know exactly what that means.
Mhm.
I love learning, preparing for the interview. I just thank you for all the great work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Stormy. And everybody else, all the other optimists out there too. Yeah.
Abs- Absolutely. All right. I just want to thank you for being a guest today on the Art of Volunteering. I want to thank my listeners for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time on the Art of Volunteering.